We are just one day away from kickoff between the Utah Utes and Arizona State Sun Devils. The Utah Utes have a big test. Who's going off for Utah and can they get the win? We're breaking it down on today's Locked On Utes.
You are Locked On Utes, your daily podcast on the Utah Utes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for making Locked On Utes your first listen and view of the day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. If it's your first time tuning into our show, make sure you like and subscribe. Today's episode brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected, it's only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda, move and be moved. My name is JT Wistrcill, ecstatic to be joined on today's show by PFF's Dalton Wasserman, who hosts the PFF co-host the college football show there and always drops great nuggets and stats about this Utah team. And we're talking Utah versus ASU, both sides of the ball, what Utah players are going to do, what ASU players are going to do, and talk about what's next for Utah, regardless of a win or a loss. Dalton, I do think Utah comes in and gets a win this game. I said 33-25 Utah Utes in this one. Before we dive into exactly each matchup and each player, how they'll perform, what's your prediction and what are you feeling going into this one?
I took Utah to win this one. I believe I had it 31-27. Similar thing, high-scoring game, two very even teams with different types of strengths. And honestly, I think this might be the most unpredictable game of the weekend. It's a loaded weekend on our college football show. We previewed 13 games this week, which was actually a show record for us. And there was just so many good ones. But this one, I think you have so many angles on this with these two teams. And really, especially Utah at home with already a conference loss to Texas Tech under their belt. They want to avoid that second loss and getting it too early there. And Arizona State has found the momentum after their loss to Mississippi State, but that was out of conference, so they're still feeling pretty good. I think this could be a wild and wacky one late night, right? It's going to be the last game on Saturday night, and it's going to be, I think, very unpredictable. I'll take the Utes at home, though. They don't often lose there.
They don't. Surprisingly, they actually haven't won a Big 12 conference home game, Dalton. They beat Baylor last year, but it was a non-conference game because it was scheduled ahead of time. They're 0-5. So weird to think this Utah team that does, I still believe, has one of the best home field advantages in college football is still looking for that first Big 12 home win in conference play. And we both think they're going to get it this weekend. I think if they are able to get it, Devon Dampier has to play well. I think this is a massive test for Dampier. When I look back at the Tech game, there was the ankle thing we've heard about too, but more than anything else, I just came away with that game more impressed with Tech than anything. I felt like what I learned about Utah is it's like, okay, they are not on the level of a top 10 team right now, and they can't beat a top 10 team. That's what Tech absolutely is. But all the other teams they've played, granted they haven't been great, Utah's smashed them. So this is a really even test for me. You know, ASU is top 21st ranked. Utah is a top 30 ranked team in the AP poll. So very even in that regard. And it's going to come down to quarterback play in some way. So this one, I do think Devon Dampier plays well. I have him going for 210 yards, rushing for 50 yards, 3 total touchdowns here. I actually think he avoids a turnover too. What have you made of Dampier so far this season, and how do you think he performs against this ASU defense?
I think he's been really good. I think they're trying to find, more options in the passing game. I've actually been very impressed with how he's adjusted to some of the quicker passing concepts because at New Mexico, it was more of a play action heavy system and taking shots down the middle of the field. Not that they haven't been doing that, but I think in the drop back game, he's been better than I expected. Obviously, again, you don't want to throw out the Texas Tech game, but that's an elite defense, man. That might be one of the top 5 or 6 defenses in college football right now. And they won the battle in the trenches, which always makes it harder for Utah when they're a run-first team. So I think Dampier has been really good. Obviously, you're going to get some circus plays when it comes to scrambling because he's that type of quarterback that's one of the best athletes on the field, and he's going to want to break outside the pocket and make big plays. But I think he's been good. I think the adjustment has been really solid. This is going to be a fun test against an Arizona State defense that isn't as stout in the trenches as Texas Tech was, but they're very fast, and they got a lot of athletes that can really run down the ball in the back end.
I want to ask you this real quick about this ASU defense. They rank outside the top 8 in the conference in total offense and defense. How much of that is their struggles versus I do think they've played 2, solid borderline fringe contenders in a Baylor and a TCU. I think those are teams that can lose to and beat just about anyone in this conference. So what do you make of the Sun Devils?
No, I think they're a solid defense. Are they the best defense in the conference? No, but I think what they do, especially they're kind of small and they're a little bit better down on the defensive line than they were last year. But they're a defense that's based more in one, athleticism, two, just flying to the football. They play as hard and pursue as hard as anybody in college football to the ball, and they want to force turnovers on the back end like they did against TCU. That's really what won them that game, was winning the turnover battle, right? So a little bit smaller, a little bit faster, a lot of really good athletes, but they're a solid defense. And especially when they're playing together and they're pursuing to the ball the way that they do every week, they make enough stops so Sam Levitt and Jordan Tyson can score enough points for them to win games.
And they had the best run defense in the Big 12 last year, which is obviously big going against this Utah team. They have a lot of talent back, but Dalton, they don't have what the Utah Utes have in the trenches, including, well, I know you guys are incredibly high on Utah's two offensive tackles. When you talk about Spencer Fano and Caleb Lomu too, right? Like those two guys are absolute game wreckers at the tackle spot. Interior offensive line that's full of veterans. I think Utah has success running the ball here. I have Dampier rushing for over 50 yards in this game. I have Wayshawn Parker going for over 70, Naquire Rogers around 40. I think Utah has success running the ball, even with them packing the box. I just think the offensive line that Utah has going to be one of the biggest differences in this game. Do you see Utah having success on the ground?
They will have success. I think this Arizona State defense, their best unit to me on defense is their linebackers. So second level with Jordan Crook and Keyshawn Elliott and Martell Hughes back there, they've all been really good. And you know, offensive lines in Utah does have a potentially great one. Good offensive lines block on the first level, lines block on the second level. So it's going to be a fun battle between the O-line and even the backs and Dampier himself on those design runs. Can they break through that linebacker level and create more explosive runs down the field? I think the key number when you get out of this game for Utah's run game is how many explosive runs that they have. We define that as 10-plus yards in those runs, right? So you talk about, I think Utah does have a distinct advantage for offensive line compared to Arizona State defensive line that isn't that big and kind of sometimes has some struggles between the tackles, but Arizona State's key, they got a set of linebackers. So maybe, you know, if Arizona State holds it to 4 and 5 and 6 yarders, they make Utah manufacture it, might lose their way a little.
Dalton, the other interesting angle of this game is Utah's passing offense. That was one thing. You know, they were in third and long a lot against Tech. They were 4-14 on third down because it was third and long. The drop back passing game is not the strength of this offense. So how will the passing game perform in this one? I said I have Dampier going for over 210 yards. So which receiving options are going to step up? I think Ryan Davis has been really good. Their connection going back to New Mexico, it's been fun. He's been wide receiver one. I have him going for about 80 yards in this one. Tobias Merriweather, he has been so close, Devon Dampier to making some big plays. I have him making a couple grabs, 60 yards, including finally getting into the end zone for the first time this season. I'm just not ready to give up on that experiment. Larry Simmons will have a solid game for Utah, 30 yards for him. Dallin Bentley's been one of the biggest surprises for this Utah team at tight end. I have him going for 40 yards and a touchdown. I think Wayshawn Parker, J.J. Buchanan do some things in the passing game too. How do you think the Utah passing game will perform against ASU's secondary?
I actually do think it is a big game for Merriweather when it comes to this Arizona State secondary. They have one of the best corners in the country, Keith Abney on one side, and I would expect him to see a lot of Ryan Davis. And if Merriweather can pick on some of the other guys on the outside, that would help too. Dallin Bentley's a great mention there at tight end. When you talk about Arizona linebackers grading for us really highly in run defense, it's not quite as good in coverage. And the other factor, too, is that their star free safety spurt is expected to be out dealing with an injury for the last few weeks. So Merriweather has that second guy. We know Ryan Davis is going to get his, but he's got a tough battle.
Yeah, it's going to be a fascinating matchup, and it'll be interesting to see how Utah does perform. It's a huge test for this team, and it's a huge test for ASU, too. How is Sam Levitt going to perform? Can the Utah Utes defense hold what was coming into the season? We thought the best quarterback in the Big 12 in check. We're breaking it down in one moment. Today's episode of Locked On Utes is brought to you by our friends at DoorDash. DoorDash has you covered on game day, and it's almost the weekend, so it's time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order. These players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. For the Utah Utes, yeah, they had their bye last week, so if we were to go back to the West Virginia game, how about J.J. Buchanan, right? He was the guy who made the huge play on third and long in the end zone, mossing the Mountaineers defender, and just been a great fun surprises here is a true freshman tight end. I think he's going to make some plays this upcoming weekend too. His performance last week, I don't think it was a fluke, and J.J. Buchanan trying to build on a streak. Just like J.J. Buchanan was able to deliver for Utah, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays with DoorDash streaks. You save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply, and this promo ends November 18th. You can head over to DoorDash now and start up your streak for game day. Today's show also brought to you by our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and you'll get $300 in bonus bets if yours wins. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. You know, FanDuel just makes it easy, right? And it makes football watching it even more fun. I mean, whether you're just looking to get in on the excitement of the action or just a casual fan who loves diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience even better. It's been a great NFL and college football season so far. This game for Utah, they are 5.5-point favorites against the Sun Devils. That line has moved a little bit, but I think Utah is going to cover. As I said, I like this Utah team a lot. We're going to break down the other side of the ball in a moment, but I like the Utes to cover. Whatever games you're leaning and having a feel on, make sure you head over to FanDuel Sportsbook today. Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app right now and get started. The Utah defense has their work cut out for them, Dalton, in an Arizona State offense that has a Sam Levitt, who coming in this year was viewed as one of the best quarterbacks in the Big 12. I don't know if he's been that. I'd probably say not right now, but we know Jordan Tyson has been incredible on the outside. And there's a very interesting matchup when you're talking about how good this ASU passing offense is versus a Utah defense that is a very heavy man coverage team, Dalton.
Absolutely, they're heavy. Actually, the heaviest in the country. Right around 60-61% of the time, they run man coverage, and they blitz at a high rate too. So you've got one of the best receivers in the country in Jordan Tyson, who going to do is look towards number 0 out there and how much he can dominate the 11. When you blitz him and you have all that man coverage, right, you always think about those guys are locked in on the receiver, the backs return to the quarterback, and who's such a dynamic athlete. Listen, he's second in the nation in yards generated off of scramble. When you blitz and you send all that man coverage and you just give him that time to break outside the pocket, it is something Utah does have to think about, right? But you know, the problem is when they do sit back, their only consistent pass rush threat so far as Henry. I think it's really going to be a decision on the part of Utah's defensive coordinator to sit back a little more often this time and make him beat us from the pocket, or do we allow all that to happen where Levitt is so dangerous outside the pocket?
Yeah, and Sam with his legs a lot of time last year got Utah in that game down in Tempe. So that's a very interesting wrinkle for this game. Dalton, Morgan Scalley is such a good defensive coordinator that I just don't feel like he's going to play the normal amount of man coverage he normally does in this game. I think he's going to respect the player that Jordan Tyson is. A reminder, Utah, a team from Arizona last year in the Wildcats, Noah Fafita came up there with, of course, Tetairoa McMillan. And Utah held McMillan to 6 catches for 50 yards. I feel like Utah's going to come up with a good plan here, whether it's more zone, whether it is just straight up double team him. Treat him like he's Julio Jones over there, because no one else on this ASU passing offense has over 200 yards on the season. So if I am Utah, I'm just not letting Tyson beat me. And you made a great point too of I'm really being careful about not just trying to sack Sam Levitt, but making sure you keep him in the pocket, because when he does get out, he can be incredibly dangerous. But I just feel like Utah is going to play just not going to be like, oh, we just play man. I don't think they're going to be stubborn in this game. I think they're going to adjust. What do you think, Utah? How will they choose to play the Sun Devils?
So I think you're right. A couple of big factors when it's, the difference in this game versus, say, that Arizona game last year. This Arizona State team has really started to figure out their run game too, and getting in 12 personnel. And really the end, Levitt and Tyson are the 2 best players. No question about that. But the engine of this offense and what's gotten them momentum the last few weeks is running the football with Levitt and with on early downs to put Levitt and Tyson in those more lower probability situations, right? 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, think that, because what we've seen late, and then allow big moments, right? As opposed to asking those 2 guys. It'll be interesting. And we may not know this till several minutes, even a quarter or 2 into the game, is that supposedly Arizona State is finally going to get another receiver who earlier in the season, or I should say, had a great year at Fresno State last year. He was supposed to be that second guy to take the heat off of Tyson. He had an injury that kept him out for the first 5 games. So I find that to be another interesting dynamic, a second big-time receiving. But if Jalen Moss does, and then you really question, okay, we got to sit back and play some zone. 2 guys are really dangerous.
Yeah, and then that's going to be really interesting to see is, okay, how does he acclimate this quickly too? I like the way Utah's linebackers have played so far too. Do you think Utah is going to have success stopping ASU's rushing attack? Because I mean, Levitt's been sacked 12 times too. So how much of that is Levitt versus the offensive line not being as good, even though they do have 4 starters back from last year's team?
It's not. I won't sit here and tell you it's a fantastic offensive line. It's not, but they do a very good job of scheming different ways, in action game and pulling guards to create space at the second level. Right, you can't have linebackers just constantly flowing straight into Raleigh Brown, but the different variety of schemes. And the other thing I'm going to throw out there, this won't go in the rushing yards, but Arizona State, when they're really rolling, they throw very high rate screens as well. It extends what's essentially their running game out towards the end of the screen. So the linebackers, it does. There's a lot in Arizona State's offense that forces those guys to be a little more patient than they would have to be with a lot of screen game in the RPOs and potential for that, and Levitt in the option game.
And there's a chance Utah may have to rely on some freshman D tackles. Kyle Whittingham's always so honest with the injury report, but as of right now, all the guys are currently listed as available for that. So we'll see how that plays out. But I do think it's going to be a really good battle, ASU's offense versus Utah's defense. I have Sam Levitt in this one going for 230 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. Do think he throws a pick. He's thrown a couple on the season, and I think that he's going to try to take a chance on TYSON one time, and that's where, like I said, I think Utah will have a good plan to try and contain TYSON. He'll get his, but I don't know if he's going to have one of his best days against a Utah defense that overall does pretty well holding guys in check, although less said about what they let Cam Scadaboo do for them last year. But at least when it comes to receivers, they do a decent job here. I have ASU rushing for over 100 yards, but I think the running backs actually get under 80 in this one. I think Utah really keys in on, like you mentioned, what's been the engine of their offense. And I do think Levitt will get loose. He'll make some plays with his legs too, and that's where Utah's just going to have to be disciplined. I have John Henry Daly getting home for not 1 but 2 sacks in this one. Actually, I think he's going to continue what's been a very strong campaign to be the mayor of Sac Lake City. See Jonathan Hall also getting in on one as a blitzing linebacker too. I have Teo Johnson snagging Utah's interception, and Leonard Barton and Jonathan Hall being stout guys for this Utah defense here. What have you made of this Utah defense so far? Because it's kind of a similar thing like we talked about with Devon Dampier, right? Where against the bad teams, they have dominated them. And for 3 quarters, they excelled against Tech. Outside of that big drive, that the big play Tech had on their first drive of that game, Utah really held them to just the field goal drive, and that was it in that one. So I'm still very high on this Utah defense. What do you make of this unit?
Just said the right thing is against Texas Tech until the 4th quarter, and honestly, at that point, they were just worn down. That's really what it comes down to. They just eventually you're going to wear down if you're constantly on the field. So I think it's still a very good defense, and I think the couple of themes about it, it's very aggressive. We talked about the amount of blitzing and man coverage, and they speed quarterbacks up, and they make quarterbacks make perfect throws. Will Hammer made all the perfect throws against that Utah defense this half. So if Sam Levitt got to make those tough decisions,
this is going to be an incredible matchup. We both have the Utes winning it, and I'm excited to see what this Utah defense and offense can do in a big spot. But what would a loss and a win mean for the rest of Utah's season? That's what we're discussing in one moment. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at Mazda. Mazda's moving the game forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. That's what Mazda's for. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, they move cultures, and they keep moving the game forward. When you look back at this week's moving the game forward moment for Utah, I go back to that West Virginia game, and I do say it was Devon Dampier just making play after play. He was the one who kept the momentum for this offense rolling consistently. I think for like the moment for Dampier, it was probably that he rolled out to the right and just lofted a very light, like not a far pass, but a very soft pass to Wayshawn Parker, who tiptoed the sideline and was able to stay in. Those are the kind of moments that get everyone buzzing, the type of moments that generate hype and buzz for Devon Dampier too. And he kept the game moving forward. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved with Mazda today. Dalton, you said it earlier, but I do think a win for this Utah team puts them right back in the, hey, maybe they're not Tech, but they're right below. I feel like they're still there, and I just think that's how good Tech is. But a win here would be like, okay, Utah has an argument to be the second best team in the Big 12. You beat Arizona State, Iowa State, probably they've got the teams that are up there right now. I think a win for this Utah team is massive, especially because, and we'll talk about it a little more in a moment, Dalton, I don't think you can afford to fall to 1 and 2 in Big 12 play with so many other potential threats at an upset for this Utah team along the way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. A loss would mean your back is against the wall for the second half of the season. We've seen this from some other teams around the country, too. If you get your second loss this early in the year, you've got a real problem when it comes to playoff contention and even conference contention. Honestly, you just mentioned it, and there's a lot of tough games left coming for Utah after this one. BYU, Cincinnati, they're really good so far. Baylor and all those receivers they have, they're high flying. And even at the end of the year, Kansas State and Kansas. Kansas State's having a tough year, absolutely, but all of their games have gone down to the as we saw last year is all the threat. So I think it's a tough second half schedule. And last year we saw it, but all those teams had, you get into a place where, okay, if we have an opportunity for a third loss with those 6 games remaining, you really got your back against the wall there. I think a win really sets you up nicely because it's huge to get a potential tiebreaker over Arizona State. You avoid second loss so early in the season. And then, I think it's just about this is one of the biggest games in the Big 12, obviously. The biggest remain really they've already beaten TCU, and if they get a win over Utah, if they're 3-0 with a win over those 3 teams, you're really talking about an Arizona State team that is in a great spot. Now they have to play Tech right after. That would put them in a really, really good spot.
It would. For this Utah team, Dalton, I think if they lose this game, the potential for them to make the Big 12 title game, I mean, it's like 10% maybe. I mean, I feel like it's just low. We just said, like, there's all these games left. Not only would you have to run the table, I don't see a 3-loss team in conference making the title game. Maybe there will, and they'll all beat each other up, but that you just also lose tiebreakers to, it's one thing to lose the tiebreaker to Tech. It's another thing to lose it to an ASU team that has looked vulnerable. If they go in and beat Utah, I don't think they're going to hammer Utah. So if, let's say, ASU wins, they win another close, tight game. They're going to probably lose other close, tight games along the way. And even if they have a second loss, they still own the tiebreaker over you. So this is a Utah team that came and they want to win a Big 12 title. And those dreams are on life support if they cannot come out on top against the Sun Devils this weekend.
Absolutely agree. I think if Arizona State were to win this game, the teams you're looking at in the driver's seat for that second spot are them and possibly Cincinnati, who's undefeated in conference with a huge win over Iowa State. But I think you'd really look at Arizona State again, a win, back-to-back wins over Baylor, TCU, and Utah to have tiebreakers over all 3 of those teams. Boy, they got a lot of tough games.
Dalton, is going to be a blast. You and I both cannot wait to watch this game. And please let people know where they can come and find more of your content, man.
Absolutely. We've got our written content, as always, on PFF.com and the PFF College Football Show on YouTube.
It's going to be fantastic, just like it was having you on, Dalton. Thank you so much for making the time, man. Really appreciate it.
Appreciate it, JT. Thank you.
That's going to do it for today's Locked On Utes. Utah fans, tomorrow it's game day. We'll be going live right after the game, reacting to what will be an absolutely insane one between the Utah Utes and the Sun Devils. I think Utah's getting a win. Dalton did too. Drop your score predictions in the comments below, and we'll see you after the late night thriller between the Utes and Sun Devils tomorrow night.